Hello everyone and welcome to another draft guide video for upcoming set Secrets of Strixhaven. Today only thing left for us to do is cover the Quandrix since we did cover all the other schools. And I will give you an idea on how I look at this color pair, how I see it play, and which cards I kinda find important for it to work. Since I would say that this is not a 5 archetype set, but rather there is a Converge as well, I will have to make a video for that as well. Today on Arena this set is being released and I will not have the time for making the Converge. I will have to owe you that one and it will come up someday in the weekend for the how do I see Converge being played. So without further ado, let's see the Quandrix. We will break this video in few sections. First one, we will start on how I look on Quandrix. Then we will check which creatures we like to play when it comes to blue and green colors. Signpost cards we don't want to miss. Instant and sorceries we like on playing. Removals we need to have. First thing that comes to my mind when I look at a Quandrix is that it does scream to me, let's get more mana so we can cast our big spells. Quandrix does have a lot of way of finding the lands, and in that way we might be a good base for Converge or just splashing the bombs. Key mechanic for this color combination, I would say that it is Increment, which is just a strong limited mechanic that plays naturally with curving out, and I would say most if not all Increment cards are just great for limited environment. So when we look at the cards, we will like the cards that will help us on getting to our mana, which will help us on casting our big spells, and combine them with a good increment cards that are just naturally playing well. They're gonna be great on early on blocking, but later on they just might represent a big threat for opponent who have to deal with. So let's check which creatures we will like to play in blue and green for this archetype. Starting with blue, and first one we will mention is Hydro Channeler, 2 mana 1/3. It has the option of giving us a mana for instant sorceries. I think this one is just generally good because we will be interested in creatures that have high toughness early in the game, that are gonna be efficient on blocking. Plus, yet again, this one might be able on ramping us to the spells we want to try to cast as fast as possible. So I think the Hydro Channeler just naturally plays great for the 2 mana you can get for this archetype, and this one would be something that we would look forward on having. Another 2-drop is the Landscape Painter. It's a 2 mana 2/1 which has a prepared ability which is Divination. The way I would look at is a creature that we have early on that we can like block with. Do not be greedy because like we do have a lot of other cards to generate as value while we are ramping, and this is just a solid creature that can block and trade early on. And later in the games, it's not bad to attach this one with a draw 2, even though we play 7 mana. We might have more mana as available. Would say that this is just like a solid 2-drop to consider and not skip it if you're especially lacking 2-drop. After Bending Mage, a 3 mana 2/2. When this creature enters, it returns up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. You could always choose your one if you have a reasoning for it, maybe like triggering another time preparation spell, or you just wanna get that enter the battlefield effect again. And whenever we cast a card that does, or a spell that does have X in it, this one will be unblockable. I think this one just naturally plays well because Mana War has always played well in limited. I don't see why this one would not. We will have a lot of cards that will have X in them, so we will have an unblockable creature, and this is just a good creature to have in mind when we are trying to fight for the early game and making sure that we can actually get to the late game. Amuse Seeker, a 2 mana 1/2. Overall, this creature is just awesome. We will have options of casting spells, and then we will be able on going through our deck. Would say that this is generally a creature that the opponent will be interested in using a removal on, and if that is the case, if opponent is using a premium removal on a 2-drop, we are actually happy about it. So Muse Encouragement, it's a 5 mana instant and does make a 3/3 elemental, and when you do, you get a Surveil too. Even though this is not a creature, it actually is because it does make a creature. Why am I interested in this is because it will have an option of making sure increment does happen. Orsa Tide Choreographer, 5 mana 2/2. When it does enter, it does draw 2, and it will cost less if we have 10 or greater in toughness. I think this one is great because our creatures that we play on curve do have a lot of toughness, so we will most likely be able on casting this one for 2 mana. But even if it is not a case, if we cannot cast it for 2 mana, casting it for 5 and making sure increment does happen, I think is something that we would like. Overall, an amazing creature for us to have, and we cannot go wrong on picking and trying it in this color combination. Campus Composer, a 4 mana 3/4. It does have a prepared ability which makes a 3/3 flyer. I think this one is just overall good. It is a solid stats for the mana. It does have ward which protects itself, and it does have another body attached to it if we do have the mana. Tester of the Tangential is a 2 mana 1/1 that does have an increment ability, and on the combat you can move its counters to another creatures by paying X mana depending on how many you did want to move. I think overall, like I did say, all the increment cards should play well in limited. This one is a 2-drop, and it should be able on growing pretty easily because it does have 1 power and toughness. Overall, I would say that this one is tricky because we are not happy about a 2 mana 1/1, but looking in the few next turns ahead, I think this one easily becomes like a 3/3 or maybe a 4/4. If we think about it, in a 2 mana body is not bad. But this one will be tricky to rate because, like, if we are facing aggressive decks, we might not maybe have the time to grow it, or opponents will just have efficient removals that can deal 1 damage to kill it. I'm interested in seeing how this one plays, and like I said, I think all increment cards are gonna be good, but we will see. Talking about good increment cards is the next creature, the 3 mana 0/3 Frog Wizard. It does have increment and it does surveil too when it does enter. I think this one is amazing because it has 0 in it, and then it should be pretty easy on growing it. I can totally see this one while actually being an amazing blocker for us early in the game, that it becomes like a 5/8 later in the game. So this one just feels amazing for the Quandrix, and I think this is maybe the best, I would say, 3-drop that we can play. Aberrant Mana Worm is a 4 mana 2/5 Trampler, and whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, this creature will get X in its power when X was the mana we did spend to cast that spell. I think this creature is good because for 4 mana we get a decent wall, and later in the game I think this creature can actually represent a big threat because we do have cards that do have X into them, and then whenever we play the X into them, this creature most likely will just grow for the X. So can easily see this being like amazing because it can end the game super easily while being a great defensive creature for us. Again, Additive Evolution, an enchantment that does make a 3/3 factual. And then on combat, we put a counter on any creature we control that does gain a vigilance. I think this card is just an awesome card because if you think about it, you get for 5 mana a 4/4 because you could go to the 3/3. That is the base, and then the game, if it goes longer, every combat we grow our creature. So this card is just good for us. I don't see how it will end up on being bad. Of course, if the set is super aggressive, all the cards that do cost more are a bit worse, but I think this one should play really decently. We will have ways of ramping, and if you play this earlier, the earlier we play it, the better it is. So this card just feels great. So next creature we will mention is the Emil, a 3 mana 3/3. All the creatures we have with 1/1 counters do have trample, and then it does have that tap ability that does make fractals. You will put X counters on it when X is the number of different named lands. Since this color combination is good on finding other lands, and like I said, we might be interested in splashing some other rares. This one overall is just good. It is a 3/3 body for 3 mana. We will have cards with increment that do grow, so with them you're gonna give them trample. I think overall this creature is just great. You cannot go wrong on putting it in most of the green decks, and it is always nice having a creature that can just generate more stuff. Environmental Scientist, it's a 2 mana 2/2 that does find the land. I think this card is just good. Having a creature that is attached with a land is always nice to have, so this one is a solid 2-drop. Kangri Graphalon is a 4 mana 3/4 reach increment. I think from all the increment cards, this is the one that I like the least because it does enter with already huge stats. But yet again, like I said, I think all increment cards should play well, and I can totally see this one playing as well amazingly. Like if you think about it, just put 2 counters on it or 3 counters on it. That's an amazing stat that you do get. A solid 2-drop that I think that should play well. It does have the prepared ability. Even though we don't care much about gaining the life, we don't have a lot of infusion cards, just having a way of like getting a lot of life out of nowhere, plus having that X spell that, like I said, which this color combination is interested on having on some of the cards, is a nice thing to have. Since we are interested on ramping and getting to our big cards, Noxus Newt is an amazing creature to have. It is a death touch, Watcher, so yet again, it does trade with anything, and it will be a good early 2-drop that will make sure that we get to cast our big spells. Slot is another interesting 4-drop, even though we don't care much about a pest. I think having a 4 mana for reach, which when it does die makes 2 additional bodies, is a great thing to have. Studio's first year, a 1/1 bear wizard that does have a rampant growth on its ability, that does find any land and put it into battlefield tapped. Like I said, we are interested on ramping, so this having a 1/1 body with a rampant growth is a great thing to have. Topiary, Lecturer, a 3 mana 1/2 that does have increment, and then when it does tap, it does give the mana equal to its power. Yet again, increment, name of this color combination that I think it's efficient on making it work. I don't see why this dork would be bad. I think at the moment you play it, yes, it will be the 1/2, but next turn, you could easily make it like a 2/3 or a 3/4, and then just keeps on like snowballing with the mana. We get to cast our big spells, and then this creature should just be good on like keeping on growing. So yet again, another good increment card to just play in this color combination. And comparing to Witherbloom, where I did say that I would be interested in playing maybe one of this, I think in this color combination you can make this card more efficient. We do like creatures that do have counters on them, plus we do have a Surveil 2 attached with this one. It does have X in it, which isn't bad. That way we can make sure that Opus triggers can happen, we can make sure that increment does happen. Having a Surveil 2 and getting a way of going through the deck is an awesome thing to have. Now we will check the Signpost cards in this color combination. Starting with Cubit Colony, a 2 mana 1/1 flash flying trample increment. While I do think the flash is something that is interesting on this card, because I don't think we do wanna play it and block unless we can combine it with more spells where we can grow it immediately. And yet again, like I said, increment is just a really amazing mechanic, or at least I see it as amazing. I might be wrong, but I just don't see how it will not play great for limited environment. Embrace the Paradox, a 5 mana instant that does draw 3 cards, and then we may put a land card from the hand onto battlefield tapped. This is an interesting card because we had a similar card to this in the first Strixhaven. It was Eureka's Moment, and comparing to that one, it does cost 1 more, but it does draw additional card. Few reasons why I think that this one should still play great is because Opus, it will trigger for 5, which might be important. As we do have increment, we actually might not hate to pay 1 extra mana to draw additional card. Fractal Masquer, a 6 mana 6/6 Trampler. When it does enter, it taps a creature and then has put a stun counter on it. I think overall we might be interested in playing this card as well. I'm not sure if it is the top end we want. But yet again, having a tap and a stun counter on it means that once we play it, we try to stabilize with it. It will take some aggressiveness from the opponent. So I don't hate it, but I will have to rethink if this is the card that we do want to play as our top end. Or that would be something that would come to my mind, how much we want Mascot comparing to other cards when it does come like to playing the late game cards. Fractal Tender, a 5 mana 3/3 with a War 2. It does have increment. And at the beginning of each end step, if this creature did get a counter, you will make a 3/3 Fractal. This one is interesting because at the moment it does enter, if you do play for a 5 mana, it doesn't do anything. But if you do get to untap with it, it possibly could snowball. There are some ways of like moving the counters on this one, in which way you will get a trigger on it, or playing cards that could put counters on it. But the fact that it does have a ward and a bullseye target where the opponent has to deal with, I think it's still a good card to play. So yet again, I would say that this is just an awesome creature to play, and definitely a card to like figure out how to make as efficient as possible. Growth Curve, 2 mana sorcery in blue and green. You put a counter, then you double the number of counters on that creature. So if you think about it, the floor of this one is for 2 mana, you put 2 1/1 counters on a creature. But if you combine this with the other increment cards that are already growing, or you just play it on a card that did enter with X 1/1 counters, feels like it has the possibility of having that 1-turn kill. This one is interesting. I think yet again, like I said, 2 mana, 2 counters is good. And then the possibility of having a build around this is something to figure out. Paradox Surveyor, it's a 3 mana 3/3 with reach. When it does enter, it looks at the 5 cards. We will choose a land or a card with X in its mana cost from among them and put it into hand. We will have some cards that do have X, so overall a 3 mana 3/3 that does find a land is good, but having an option of finding another card is awesome as well. Protector's Gaze, a 4 mana instant that does have a way of returning a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so this way we have an option of actually saving our creature. or bouncing the threat that they have, and by doing so we do find a basic land as well and we put it on the battlefield tapped. I would say this card depends on like the way we are looking at it. If we are looking at it as a card that we can play earlier on and then have a way of ramping while getting a momentum, it is awesome. If you're thinking that this is the way that you can actually deal with the opponent card, it's not the best card to keep in mind. So I think we're more interested on this one being played as we have a way of finding the land we need if you're splashing, or we just want to try to ramp and get to our big cards. But playing this as a way of dealing with the opponent stuff, it's not the best thing to have a bounce. So overall, I would say that this card is good still, and I would definitely love playing it. But you gotta keep in mind that returning a non-land pair doesn't deal with a threat. And yet again, if you have to deal with the cards, buying an extra 10 isn't maybe the greatest. So just keep in mind while you're deck building on how you're looking at this card. I think you would want to be looking at it as a ramp that does have a bonus of bouncing a thing, but playing it as interaction, I wouldn't say that it is the best. I think there are better cards you could play as an interaction. Terrafractyl, it is a blue and a green and X. It enters with X counters on it, and it does have a power. When it does enter, it does give us 2 life as well. I think overall this is not bad because it is nice having a creature that we can actually play on the curve. It's not that bad getting a 3 mana 2/1 flyer that does have an option of trading with stuff. Plus it does give us life. And then later on, I think it is a card that we can choose to play for more mana. In that way, we do trigger increment, and yet again, it does represent a threat of its own. Let's check the Quandrix charm. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, destroy an enchantment, or a creature becomes a 5/5 until end of turn. I think having the quench is not bad. Usually when you're looking at the charms, you like having cards that do have more options. There are weird scenarios where maybe destroying an enchantment might matter, but I would say that the first and the third are the options that we are interested in. Having a way of making our creature base toughness and power 5/5 is not bad, especially considering that all our creatures do have counters on them. And then yet again, having a quench is something that might end up on happening. So overall, I think the charm is still good. Time Observant Sequencer, a 4 mana 4/3. It does have the prepared ability, which happens whenever a land enters, and then you may pay mana to draw a card and gain 1 life. This one reminds me mostly to Tatyova, and Tatyova was always good in limited, so I don't see why this one would be bad, even if we do have to pay the mana for drawing a card and gaining a life. So now we will check the instant and sorceries we like playing in blue and green, starting with the Essence Scatter. Having an option of countering a creature is not bad, especially considering that the blue-green feels like it doesn't have the best removals. So having a 2 mana that can deal with creatures, and considering that we have some ways of returning the creatures to their owner's hand, making sure the Essence Scatter can happen, would make me think that the Essence Scatter should be more considered while we are playing the Quandrix. The Brasha 4 mana instant that does counter target spell, and it will cost us 2 less if it does target an instant and sorcery. Considering that this color combination will be holding the mana up, plus us having a way of returning creatures to the owner's hands, I would not hate playing a cancel even though it does cost more. Plus, it does have that option of, like, being a negate. Banishing Betrayal could be an interesting consideration, since for 2 mana, it does have a way of returning a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and you get a Surveil. This is a really efficient way of dealing with the tokens opponent can generate. And yet again, like I said, if you are interested in playing the counter spells, I would not hate playing this one-off, so making sure that the counter spells can be more efficient. Chase Inspiration, for 1 mana, it gives a creature a hexproof and some toughness. I think this one I would keep in mind if you're trying to make that sorcery better, the growth curve. And yet again, depends on what creatures we have. If you do want to protect them, it's always nice to include this. Divergent Equation is still an interesting card to consider. Comparing to Prismari, yes, we do have worse instant and sorceries when we think about like what can we be returning, but yet again I think it's still a solid consideration. We still have some nice draw 3 cards and spells that can make creatures, so I would still have an eye on this one and try to make it efficient, or try to see if it can play well. I would say the Fractalize is amazing for this because It does have a way of dealing with the opponent's stuff for 1 blue mana, making them a 1/1, while having an option of being played as a 1-turn kill on our creatures, because as we did say, we are gonna be interested in playing increment creatures, and those creatures will have counters. If you combine counters with making a creature as large as you can make it, plus we do like the cards that do have X. For multiple reasonings, I think the Fractalize is an amazing card and an amazing combo trick. Procrastinate is an interesting spell for us to consider. It does have X in it, which we do like for the increment and maybe the opus as well. You might consider this being a removal if you play it for X equals 3 or 4 because you put 8 or 6 stun counters on the creature, but yet again keep in mind that is not a way of us killing a stuff. That creature could still be flickered, or it can still use the preparation ability, so have that in mind while you are including this card. Run behind the 4 mana instant that does return a creature to the top or the bottom. The owner will choose it. This one does have that flexibility that it can cost 1 mana, which is just a good thing to have, because like we can always choose to play it for 4 if that means that we're gonna grow our creatures for the increment, and if that's not the case, we can play it for 1 mana cheaper. Usually this card did come with like a surveil or something extra, but I think that this one is a card we should consider, taking in the fact that we might not have the best way of dealing with stuff. So now we will check the removals that I think that are necessary for this color combination, considering that the blue doesn't have a way of dealing with the creatures on the board, but rather just bouncing and countering them. We will just be checking the green cards. Starting with the Baruch Barrage, it's a 2 mana instant that does give a creature +1/+0 if it did cast another instant and sorcery, then it does deal damage to other creature. Even considering that our cards are small on the first glance, but rather later on are bigger, I think it's still important for having a card like this that does have a way of dealing with anything on the board while being efficient for 2 mana plus being an instant. So I would say that this is a really high card for us to pick if we are in the Quandrix. Only Tackle is a 3 mana sorcery that does give a creature +10 toughness, and then it fights another creature. Like I said, I don't like fights. I would rather always choose a bite, but in this color combination we don't have access of dealing with stuff, so we will take anything that we can get. Plus this card has an interesting cute combo with the other blue uncommon creature, so those two cards are playing well together, and it is a cool thing to have. Even though Quandrix does have a low access to removal, we have a best way of splashing cards. With that in mind, rares that are strong or good Converge cards might be something that this color combination can represent as a good base for playing. Strong increment cards are great that we have access to, while playing the cards that will help us to get to the late game, they will just keep on growing, and then our big spells can maybe help us on ending the game. During the draft, if we plan on just playing the blue-green, I would prioritize getting the green interaction over some other cards. There is a lot of strong Signpost cards that if we see late in the draft or they are wheeling, we should consider them as a sign. So that does it for Quandrix, and with this one we did finish all 5 schools in the upcoming set, Secrets of Strixhaven. I'm interested on hearing your guys' opinion on how you see the Quandrix and how you think this color combination will play. And I would like to hear which one of all 5 you like the most, which one you think that it is going to be the strongest, and the ones that you do feel like it will play the weakest. Again, I appreciate you all watching, and if you made it this far, I would like to ask you if you would like to leave a comment, liking the video, and subscribing so you don't miss the other future content that we will be making on this channel. Yet again, I appreciate you all, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, cheers.